Okay, so again, welcome. Welcome, namaste.
Namaste.
My name is Dana Saray. I am the co-founder of Hanuman Academy and the host for our online program, The Five Elements of Yoga. And Sianna is a part of that program. She teaches the water element and just a beautiful, beautiful module on the sacred element of water. And we're so grateful to have you with us in the Hanuman Academy, Sianna.
Thank you, Dana. It's so one of my teachers would always say, keep great company because you become the company that you keep. And so it's extraordinary to be in your company and with all of the collaboration for the five elements, Yoshi and all the teachers. Amazing. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. So glad to have you a part of it. So, Sianna, do you want to start us off with an opening invocation?
Love to. Let's bring our hands to Namaskara Mudra, Anjali Mudra, and allow your awareness to rest in the flow of your breath and down into the earth. And the Panchamukha, the five faces of Hanuman, hold the five elements. And so I want to really honor those five elements, the earth, the great Pachamama, for our grounding, for our stability, the anchor within our being, the earth element, steady, trustworthy, healthy, secure in ourselves, and really grounded in our sadhana, grounded in our intention, grounded in our vision and our intention. And calling upon the water, the ability to flow with love and with compassion, calling upon the waters of our flowing creativity and the waters of true loving kindness for ourselves and in our lives. And calling upon the great invocation of fire, of Agni, of that alchemical catalytic element that initiates the fire of transformation, the courage in our being, and real healthy self-esteem, the kind of healthy self-esteem that lets us be in our power and to use our power for the greater good. Calling upon the joy of the air, dancing like the winds of grace blowing through our heart space. The element of just waking up, the clarity of our being and of our mind and of the graciousness of our lives, the generosity of our lives, and the real spirit of play. And an invocation of the akasha, of the ether, of space, for that unlimited, boundless freedom, the freedom sky within our beings. And that wherever there are barriers or walls or some sort of obscuration, that all of these are simply dissolve, melt away in the greater spaciousness of our being, and that our perspective is 360 degrees, and we have an open mind, a mind of equanimity, and just real spacious freedom in our lives for the radical affirmation of all of life. And so it is that we call on the earth and the water and the fire and the air and the ether in harmonious expression and balance, aliveness and vitality in the whole of our being. Let's chant Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu and Om Shanti. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace in our lives, peace in our minds, peace in our bodies, peace in our hearts. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you, Sianna. That was beautiful.
You're welcome.
And so our topic tonight, is about yoga, ritual, and devotional practice. And one of the questions I have for you, Sianna, is how do you create sacred space for your practice? I know that you travel around the world and you're in many different places at many different times. And just if you could share a little bit about how important the sacred space is and how you do that no matter where you are.
Thanks, Dana. Sacred space is inward and outward. And to anything that we do that beautifies our space with conscious intention and attention, then crafts that sacred space. And so for me, a lot of times my practice might happen in a hotel room or in an airport is very common too sometimes, wherever it is. And I might have a little traveling altar that I have with me. I usually have a couple things that are very meaningful for me, but a lot of times I don't even have much of anything, and maybe a piece of jewelry or a mala. And if I choose to create physical space in a conscious, intentional way, then I like to have something that represents the elements. A little piece of food, like a fruit for the earth, just a little glass of water is nice for the water, a candle for the fire, some incense for the air, and for ether, a flower, which represents the blossoming of consciousness. So the space element. And you could do something very simple, or just one of those things, one simple flower, right there can craft that sacred space. And the other thing is that you don't need any physical item or object at all. Everything can be done internally. The real key is our conscious awareness and our sankalpa, our intention. Now begins my practice. And sometimes, because you'll see as I talk, I have a lot of hand gestures. I'm very expressive in my hands. A lot of times I'll just put one hand to my heart and the other hand out, and I turn and make I cast a circle around my practice space, and then go above, touch up to the sky, and then to the earth and back over my heart. So I'm honoring the 4 directions of the east and the south, the west and the north, above, below, and within. And that's a very simple gesture, one that gives it just is a safe space. And that conscious crafting of sacred space, it sets the tone, and you're invited in. I find that I am invited in more graciously and with a sense of reverence for my practice and for myself. And I do the same thing when I teach classes, by the way.
And do you do that for yourself before you teach, and you also do it within the class?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of times before I get to a space, let's say I'm in a hotel room and I'm going to a yoga studio or to a festival, in my meditation, I'll visualize the space, and I cast the directions, and I call the archangels and the guides and the allies, and I give honor to the land of wherever I am, and to the earth and to the elementals, and I'm already working even before I get to the space.
Beautiful. And you're really speaking to the power of invocation. Mm-hmm. And what's one of our bullet points here is how to do invocation, and what is the power of it, and what does it really invoke for you? What is the purpose? What is the meaning of that?
Yeah. For me, invocation is the beginning. In the yoga school that I have, it's called Rasa Yoga. And I show that the sort of like the architecture of a class for me, or the architecture of a practice, if I were to divide it into 3 parts, it's this, that the opening is the invocation, to invoke spirit, and the whole embodiment of the practice I call embody, and then the final part of the practice offer. So for me, it's invoke, embody, offer. And that's really my triadic architectural landscape for my practice and for teaching a class and teaching the teachers as well. And so the invocation of at the beginning of class is, it's the way to remember that, one, we're not alone. All things are connected. We are never separate. Um, Everything about our lives is part of the interdependent web of all of life. Our practice is then for the benefit of all beings. It taps us into the bigger picture and the greater whole. And then in that invocation of spirit, it's kind of like a remembrance that we are a channel and a conduit, and we're not the sole source of an action, but rather spirit moves through us. And then there can be more effortless effort, so that our efforts and our actions, and even in the way that we take a yoga pose, for example, instead of it being so filled with striving and just from a limited perception of me, I'm more the vessel of life energy and of love and of spirit. And the invocation is that which taps us in. And then the invocations can be very specific. And perhaps if you're a teacher, for example, you might have a theme for your class, and then the invocation can be organized towards drawing in the power of that theme. Or for a practice, if I have a practice that last night in particular, I was in a very deep practice space, and I was very much working with Mother Mary and the Marys, and with the Christ consciousness. So I created a whole invocation of my practice around Christ consciousness and Mother Mary. So it's not limited to yoga. You could have an invocation of the element of fire, an invocation of the element of water, an invocation of calling in universal love, an invocation of peace for the planet. So you can really design your invocation, but it is that channel that bridges. This might be maybe my distilled answer, because I'm a storyteller, but in the distilled way, the invocation serves as a bridge between the seen and the unseen, the physical and the subtle, the earth and the heaven, the matter and spirit. And so it is that bridge that connects us.
Thank you. Beautiful. So when you were speaking there, it reminded me about something you teach in the water module of the 5 elements of yoga. You teach about the balance of soma and agni, the nectar and the fire. And I really heard you speaking that when you talked about, even in the asana, how you come into this pose, and instead of only efforting into the pose, you also call in this quality of surrender, of being the vessel. Can you say a little bit more of that, just that balance of the soma and the agni?
Yeah, so Agni and Soma, Agni is fire and Soma is moonlight, and it means that which is the nectar and that which nourishes. And the Agni is that which gives us the power for change and breakthrough energy, and sort of that rajasic force that gets things moving and picks us up out of our lethargy and our dullness. And for me, when I practice, and also for Rasa Yoga, our sadhanas, we take careful attention that we have both sadhanas of Agni and sadhanas of nectar. So Agni and Soma sadhanas. And I actually have a lot of different sadhanas for each of those. And even within one practice, there's the balance of Agni and Soma. If we have all fire in our practice, a lot of tapasya, a lot of heat generating power, and a lot of just like going for it, which is amazing, and we want this. If we only have that, then we can run the risk of burning ourselves out over time and depleting ourselves. If we only have a lot of nectar, a lot of chill factor, then we run the risk of complacency and not having that breakthrough energy, because the Agni is serving our like boost of confidence, our willpower. There's a teaching in Tantra that says tapasya, which means the fire of the practice, generates tejas, which means the radiance and the light of our being. So that kind of let's go for it kind of willingness and dedication in the practice can generate a massive amount of radiance. However, if there is no balance of being willing to receive and surrender and offer, and to recognize that we are being breathed all along, and that in a certain way, we could say that there's a balance of our beingness and our doingness, and the fire can become all doing, and then we lose the magnetic center of our being, because the magnetic center of our being just is, and it's most magnetic when we allow ourselves to drop in and rest. So it is the balance between that doingness, the beingness, the balance between the fire and the nectar, between, a lot of solar and a lot of lunar. And it is a cosmic dance. Just like within our lives, we need the daylight hours and the nighttime hours. We need the energy to, go for life. And a lot of times crossing off a to-do list, not a bad thing. But if it's only to-do list, and no sleep, then we're exhausted. We have an exhausted mind. So the great teaching is rest this exhausted mind and rest into the state of natural deep peace.
Mm. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're in a pretty intense moment on the planet right
Mm-hmm.
now. There's a lot of chaos and change and instability and uncertainty that a lot of us are experiencing. And, in terms of your own practice and what you see in your students, what do people need right now to really find their own balance?
To be totally honest, I feel that a lot of us can benefit from conscious nonviolent communication skills because there's a lot of difference of opinions, and these difference of opinions and disagreements are totally fine. However, if in the expression of our points of view we create greater division and polarization, then it creates, it moves towards aggression, hostility, and violence. And so what I have been sharing a lot in my yoga teacher trainings, and also I work with groups of women, is about our conscious communication, and to source ourselves, like to be able to really ground ourselves in presence and in breath, to notice when we're speaking from a defensive place or from an aggressive place. Typically, when we're speaking from an aggressive place or from a defensive place, then our shadow is up. It's triggered. So that's like a red flag, like, hey, be mindful. You might be speaking out of your shadow place rather than speaking rooted in your source place and your greater knowing. So there's a lot more I can say, but I really feel that conscious nonviolent communication is key. And there are these 4 gates of speech that I always love, which really pulls us way back into presence when we go through the 4 gates of speech, because we have to ask before we speak and initiate through these 4 gates. The first gate is this true? Like, what I'm about to say, is it true? And then we say, okay, and then there's a second gate. Is it necessary to say? Because maybe we feel it's true, but is it really necessary to say? So then we pass through that gate. And then we say, well, is this the right time to say it? And if we pass through that gate, then we come to a 4th gate, which is, can I say it in a kind way, in a way that really is of benefit? So I feel that this is a time, especially when there's a massive amount of unsettled energy and a big difference of opinion. Even when we think that we might be in a circle that shares our opinion on for whatever it might be, and find out that maybe the whole circle doesn't share that opinion, and it's almost like we get offended by it. So time to check in and see how we want to really be a living voice of yoga expressed through our words, and that this is a time also to not hide and try to kick back and let the world, do its thing. This is a time of action. And yoga has always been about skillful action. This is the whole essence of Krishna to Arjuna and the Gita. Yoga is skillful action. So it is a time of action and a time of kindness. And it's especially, and maybe exclamation, 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 a time of personal accountability and personal shadow work.
Mm-hmm. Aho. Yeah. Yeah. And so in the 5 elements program, in the water module, you invoke a lot of different types of goddess archetypes. You invoke Saraswati, you invoke Tara and Kuan Yin, and probably many more that I'm forgetting in this moment. I'm curious, right now at this moment on the planet, what energy do you feel like is really helpful for people to work with in what we're going through? And how would you recommend, invoking that energy, and how do you work with those energies?
Well, I really feel that this is going to be a very personal, resonant field, and that it's maybe not necessarily one archetypal energy, nor is it a particular Shakti or deity, but rather it is what is most resonant inside the person. And it depends on, it's definitely a time of compassion. And so the Kuan Yin, Mother Tara, Mother Mary, really important. I also feel that it's really an alchemical time. And so for me, it's a lot about the dance of the masculine and feminine and really walking the path together. So I personally work with Yeshua and Mary Magdalene. That's a big power for me. I'm also very much work with the Maheshwara, Shiva energies, and then the Parvati and Shakti energies. You could have like a Krishna Radha. And I think it's a very important time, especially because of the intensity of polarization and division, that it's an important time for women and men in gender, and then for the masculine and the feminine encoded within each of us, regardless of our gender, to be the flame carriers for a new time, an alchemical time. And so I would encourage people to ask, like, what force of the feminine do they resonate with? And what force of the masculine do they resonate with? And to work with both energies. And they don't have to be lovers necessarily. It could be that you very much resonate with Buddha and with Kuan Yin. And so you just hold both of those. I feel that this is a really good time. If someone perhaps doesn't gravitate towards deity in some sense, then you could work more in the sense of like, well, I would like to work with the earth energy and with the sky energy, and to hold both of those together. Or just simply say, what does the masculine mean to me in its most balanced, harmonious way? And what does the feminine mean to me in a balanced, harmonious way? And then begin with invocation of those qualities within that masculine and within that feminine to cultivate consciously within one's own self.
Thank you. I read something today. It's the year of the fire rooster, but I read someone's interpretation today of the fire phoenix and the yin fire phoenix, and how the phoenix really represents the masculine and the feminine together, and this healing and rise of these energies, and this year holding this ability for the feminine to rise up because the masculine is also there. So that real beautiful balance of the masculine and feminine. And I thought that was so beautiful and powerful energy to work with. Yeah.
The Phoenix, my whole tour last year was Phoenix tour. And I love the story of the Phoenix and the mythology. But for my yoga school, the mythic animals are the dragon descending and the phoenix rising. And so they create a circuit. So I'm wild for the Phoenix and all things Phoenix I love. So I'm glad you invoked the Phoenix. And you know what's really interesting too in the mythology, just to carry that, because we think, oh, Phoenix fire. And of course, because rising in this new emergence of form, out of the fire, out of the death of the old form, rises the song of the new form. And the Phoenix is singing the songs to the sun. That's what a Phoenix is born to do. And the tears, the water of the Phoenix are actually considered to be the most healing force of the Phoenix. So there is, again, that rising power and then the descending power, that flaming power and then the healing power of the water. And so within the mythology holds the balance of these.
So beautiful. That brings me to my next question, which is related to a topic you cover in the water module of the 5 Elements of Yoga. And you really bring in this beautiful concept of dreaming awake, that which we choose to create, that which we want to create. And it does feel to me like this is a time where there's a lot of endings, there's a lot of sort of maybe the old paradigm structures are being broken down. There's a lot of chaos for everybody. And there's something like the Phoenix that is ready to be reborn. And can you say a little bit more about this dreaming awake and and how we can use this in this time?
Great. I would love to. I'm going to do one logistical check-in. Is the sound okay? Is all the sound okay?
Sounds great to me.
Okay.
If anybody wants to type in their chat box.
I just want to make sure because, okay. Oh, right. Excellent. We've been filming a lot at my house and there's a massive cleaning crew upstairs right now. So if it gets too nuts, let me know and I'll send a text message. So, okay, great. Okay, so summarize the question for me one more time. So I go through it.
Awake and
dream awake. Okay. So there's a couple things around this. One is that dreaming awake is something that we're going to come back to the word invoke. Dreaming awake is an invocation from inside our being to live the joy and the passion of our hearts. This is to dream awake. And we can say manifesting current. And I also like to say womb-manifesting, so that we really, again, the womb center, especially for women, is the center of such deep feeling and of our emotional intelligence. And then there's manifesting, which is like a real, we're gonna make this happen kind of thing. And we need, again, all of it. But so the dreaming awake has the experiential aspect of our feeling body. When you really listen and drop in and feel the rhythm of you, the wildness of your soul, what is naturally joyful and in the most authentic way, not because the world thinks it's a good idea, for you to do this, A, B, or C, but because of the authentic passion and joy that is at the center of your being. There's a teaching that I often offer for dreaming awake, which is that joy is the magnet. Joy is the magnet. And if we drop in to the natural joy in the center of our being, the universe rushes in to support us. The great mystery unfolds in ways that we cannot even conceive of. This is why I like dreaming awake, because in the dream world, things happen that we don't normally think can happen. You know, it's like all of a sudden we're flying, and then we're breathing underwater, and, you know, many things can happen in the dream world. And in the conscious waking world, we really limit ourselves, and we start to believe a certain story where the conditioned, illusory patterns of the mind get more entrenched, and we follow more our fears and our insecurities rather than our passion and our joy. But in the dreaming awake world, where we all of a sudden we have those phoenix wings, we have kind of like an edge of growth that we expand into very freely, and we start to ask ourselves, what is the pulse of my joy? What is my feeling body telling me? And then we follow that feeling body, and the mystery of life begins to support us. And so all of a sudden, energy into matter. And so my teaching is, joy is the magnet, energy into matter. It is done, it is done, it is done. And so we dream our lives awake, really from the innermost feeling of our passion and our joy.
Wow. And so now it's so important, right? When we want to dream awake a new paradigm of the world for all humanity, you know, that we are able to really access that joy. There's a lot of fear out there. There's a lot of anxiety, I'm noticing. And, you know, really to be able to come back to that place of joy and of peace within. Can you offer any tips, like in your personal sadhana, that you use to find that place
Of the inner peace and the inner joy? Yes. Well, my practice, I love asana, of course, and for me, asana is the enthronement of the divine energy. So when I practice asana, I really experience an integration of of the divine with my human body, and my human body as divine. Like, it's an integrated field. And then I chant a lot, I sing a lot, I go to nature quite a lot. And I feel that time with nature really gives a cohesive, peaceful feeling to our mind and to our physical body, as well as to our emotional body. I bathe in moonlight. That's number one medicine for the emotional body. And I also practice with a lot of mudra and meditation. So all of it. But if I were to give a couple things, because for me, it's all a bhakti fusion, you know, an alchemical practice that includes all these things. But I can offer a couple mudras right now that might be interesting. And of course, there's many mantras for just really overall general kind of peace in one's heart. Om Mani Padme Hum is beautiful. And so just Loka Samasta for peace. And I'll lower this down and show a couple mudras. Here's one that's just for loving kindness. It's called the Hridaya. That means of the heart. And you fold your index finger into the base of the thumb and simply rest the middle finger and the ring finger onto the thumb, and let the little finger be lightly extended. And you do it on both hands. So the index finger goes to the base of the thumb, the middle finger and tip of the ring finger to the thumb. I'm trying to see, there we go. And then the little finger extends. This is called the mudra of the heart. And then what I do is sit with this mudra and rest it on my legs. And I call in English the loving kindness, the metta meditation. So it would, for yourself, it would be, may I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. And you do that until you really feel it. And then you would say the same thing for a benefactor, for a mentor, for a guide, for someone who's really extended, you know, their love towards you and have helped you along the way. And so then you would call in that person, and then you would call in maybe some other people from your family or friends, and then you go to the world at large, and then you go towards someone that you're in conflict with. So during this very political time, I have been doing this for the leaders of the world, and I name them, or I just call them in collectively. And I really start with myself, and then may the political leaders of our world be filled with loving kindness. May the political leaders of our world be peaceful and at ease. May they be happy. May they be well. And you just are calling this in. And just while we're at it, the other little trick I have is that I'm very visual, and again, kind of evocative in storytelling, but I visualize the wings or the cloak of the goddess behind me, and blowing her breath into the back of my heart to clear away the dust, so that my heart is really open and clear. And then I do the same thing for the political leaders. So on the morning of the inauguration of Trump, I was exactly in meditation at that time, and with a group of women, visualizing the wings of Isis from behind the back of his heart. So there's many ways to call in peace. We have to begin for ourselves. We cannot, otherwise it's projection. If we are not living what we think others should live, then it's merely a disconnection and a projection. But if we are embodiments, and you asked earlier what kind of force I feel is needed in the world right now, I can actually speak to one universal one, and that is embodied wisdom. You might call this the Holy Sophia, or have other names, but embodied wisdom, I do feel, is what is necessary at this time. And that then we're sourcing from a real living place, rather than just lofty ideas, visions, or reactionary things, pushing it out into the world, but from our embodied wisdom, from our source connection, then we make these offerings.
Wow. Beautiful. Thank you, Sianna.
You're welcome.
And if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to type questions into your chat box, and we'll get Sianna on that. So please feel free, if you have any comments, to type that in. And so while we're sort of waiting to see if there's any questions, I'll just ask my last question.
Okay.
And that is, just in terms of actually working with the 5 elements directly to find balance in your life, do you have any tips around that for people in this time of turbulence, like coming into balance, and how to directly use the elements?
Okay, I'll just think of some real easy, accessible ways. Earth is food, the food body, and to eat foods that truly nourish us and ground us. In times of turbulence, it's better to eat foods that settle you and nourish you, versus that are too overly rajasic, too overly stimulating to the body. So you might watch, for example, the intake of caffeine or alcohol, or excessively spicy or excessively sweet, like all things in moderation, but to eat in a way that has like rhythm and nourishment and really honoring. And for me, I've studied a lot of nutrition and did an undergrad in that, and then towards master's and all this stuff. I was macrobiotic, I was vegan, I was raw, I was Ayurvedic, everything. The truth is that when we listen to our body actually will. Our body's intelligence is so high and so clear that if we know how to listen, our body will guide us directly to the most beneficial foods and way of eating. And that this will come and go in cycles. So there may be times in our life where one particular way of eating is most nourishing for us, and then it changes. And we have to be willing to change with it and to receive that change. So for the earth, to eat just beautiful, vital foods. For me, it's local as much as possible, organic, non-GMO, just fresh and alive, the least amount of processing. We go to the farmers market a lot, or if you have community supported agriculture, CSAs, amazing way, but just eat what's local and wholesome and the least amount of processing. And that truly feels good to you. And that will honor the earth in a really good way. Another simple way to honor the earth is to have just a nice rhythm in sleeping, and to do things so that you sleep really well, where you do experience the deep dreamless sleep state so that the body can naturally rejuvenate. So much of the body's rejuvenation and health happens in the deep dreamless state of sleep. And so maybe take a warm bath with a little lavender, do the nice things, the sweet things. Make sure that you don't eat too, late, close to bed, or too many stimulating things. Just take care of yourself so you sleep well. And these are very just nice grounding things. And just go put the back of your heart up against a tree. Immediately you'll connect to earth. Boom. It's like, the instant love connection with the earth is right up with the trees. For the water, well, for each of these elements, I will say to go be with the elements in nature. So with the earth, the tree, lie down with your back upon the grass and the earth. The water, go sit by flowing water, any kind, little creeks, little bubbling springs, streams, waterfalls, ocean. Wherever there is running water, there is a massive amount of life. A lot of negative ions immediately clears the whole field of one's being. And a very simple thing is to pray to your water before you drink it or take a bath. Water, as we know through all the amazing water science, is that the crystalline structures of the water take on the shapes of our prayers and our intentions. So drink just nice water, nice filtered spring water. Try to avoid all the plastics. That's really, bringing like islands of entire plastic into our oceans. Let's just try to minimize the use of plastic and really drink water, pray to water, sit by running water. And that is going to go a long way. And also really respect your feeling body and notice where there's any numbing out of trying to escape the pain of the feeling body, or any place where we're turning to addictions or any other patterns of escape to avoid feeling deeply. Because in order to heal, we must be willing to deeply feel. And so to really honor the feeling body with the water. With fire, go to the morning sun. That one's a little trickier for me since I'm more of a night person, but I do love the morning sun too. And to go to the morning sun, I chant Gayatri mantra at sunrise and sunset. Go to the morning sun, a gentle gaze, calling in that light, bringing the warmth of the Agni of the sun into your vision. Fire governs vision. It governs, in Ayurveda, the fire element governs our physical vision as well as our inner spirit vision. So the fire is inner and outer vision. It's said that the ambulatory organs of fire element, this is Ayurveda, are the feet. So that when the fire is healthy inside of us, healthy Agni, then our feet know what direction to walk in life. We know the path that we want to walk because we have that clear sight. So that's a beautiful connection. Candle gazing, Tradaka, one of the best ways. You just turn all the lights out, put a candle about 2 feet in front of you, right at the level of the third eye. And you let your eyes, you try to gaze upon the candle without blinking. The eyes will get a little watery. Just gently blink them, return to your gaze. And then you close your eyes and visualize the unwavering flame right at the center of your third eye. And this will also help cultivate inner sight, a little bit of clairvoyance, a little bit more of that is psychic realm, and just really trusting your inner vision.
Mm.
And healthy Agni too. There's so much I can say about each thing, but cultivating your healthy digestion, because Agni is the power of digestion, metabolism, and assimilation. It's that energetic element, so that not only we're digesting, metabolizing, assimilating our food for the highest nourishment, but also our emotions and our life experience, so that we want to digest, metabolize, and assimilate life experience and emotions in everything that we go through, the whole of the journey. The air, breathing deeply and being willing to breathe fully and to be outside in the fresh air and with nature. There, if you want to breathe deeply, just go be with nature, and you're already going to drop in. Of course, we have all the pranayama, beautiful techniques and offerings, and breath work and pranayama, the expansion of the life force energy. Breathe more consciously, more at ease. Breathe. A really beautiful thing for the air element is to breathe into the back body and to visualize that a breath is coming through the back of your heart, and then it's opening up the center of your being, and then you exhale and release, so that the breath is a nourishing force, and then the exhalation is a releasing force. And then in the tantric text, they say that in between the inhale and the exhale, between the nourishment and the surrender and the release, is a flash of pure joy, and that the in-breath and the out-breath, they meet and they merge at the root of one's heart, which is the hridaya, the heart. So be in nature, breathe clean air, and try to create the best circumstances in your home and in your environments for fresh, clean air. Bring in, this is so practical, but a lot of people don't do it. Your vents, through the heating vents of your house, are probably filled with dust. You can just call in the big vacuum service and they get it all out. You won't believe what a difference it makes. Run a diffuser, things like this. Really practical stuff goes a long way. And then for space and ether, this is really about what I want to say is sahaja, which means the spontaneous freedom of your creative energy, that trust in your way of living your life fully. Trust the spontaneous unfolding and blossoming of your creative energy, and this honors the whole of the ether element. Go and dance. Just dance. And like when we dance, it's rare unless you're in a dance class, but usually when you're dancing, you're not thinking, I should be dancing like that person or that. You're just dancing. It's the spontaneous play, the lila, the devotion, the heart of your life through your embodied temple of everything that is you. So the spontaneous play of your being to honor the space and the ether.
Wow, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Beautiful. So many tips. And Sianna is joined by 4 other amazing teachers in the 5 Elements of Yoga program. And each teacher teaches so much wisdom and rich information about each of these elements. And I would highly encourage you all to check it out. She's joined by Saul David Ray, Janet Stone, Juan Pablo Barahona, and Sri Devi Bringy. And the course is really, really just phenomenal. I have to say, I'm so happy with the teachings, and I'm learning so much myself, and really grateful.
Thank you. And Dana, I see just a couple questions I could address. I could probably do it quickly. I can try. I don't have my glasses on, but I see a couple things. One is like what type of incenses I like. I'm a real natural kind of incense person, so I love just sage, white sage. I love Palo Santo. Sometimes I like essential oils, but not too strong in a diffuser. I cannot do incense sticks for the most part, except for like one Japanese company, because if they have any fragrance to it closes my throat. So I love Palo Santo and I love white sage, especially. And then I have a little censer that I make my own incense blends on with, different metaphysical properties. That's another thing, but I just wanted to address that. And I just, fresh flowers, and then shadow work, because I want to just touch the ground with that, because I'm in love with shadow work. And my teacher of shadow work, his name is Robert Augustus Masters. He's phenomenal. He wrote a book called Spiritual Bypassing. He has an audio, Knowing Your Shadow, and Emotional Intimacy, How to Be a Man. I mean, he is a master, and I bow to him. But shadow work essentially is to deeply, in Tantra, we have a practice called vichara, the innermost self inquiry, the depth of our self inquiry, to really investigate the whole of ourselves and to see what has been repressed, lies hidden, cast away, rejected, denied, somehow not honored. And it's most likely parts of ourselves that we don't think are that great, or that we'd rather not see. But what happens if we keep repressing those aspects of ourselves is that they grow. And what we resist persists is one of the basic teachings. What we resist persists. And there's another teaching that the cave that you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. So oftentimes where we're afraid to look at our own self in an honest and true way actually is holding some kind of gift. But when we repress things about ourselves, what happens is that they get tangled up. Like you could just see like just all these little tangled knots happen. And then there's a distortion in our emotional body. And then all of a sudden we react to the world more like out of our fear, out of our insecurity, out of our aggression, out of our hostility, out of whatever. But it's not from the whole of ourself. It's from this part of ourself that's all tangled up in knots. And so what shadow work does is it liberates the tangled up, knotted places. It takes us into a full embrace to see the whole of ourselves so that we can work with the whole field. And then what happens is we start to integrate on every level of our being, so that we are as real of a human being as we can be, as honest of a human being as we can be, and as whole of a human being as we can be, which cannot happen unless we know the dark of the self as much as the light of the self. And so to only go one way, we're back to Agni and Soma. If you only go one way, it eventually tips the scales and imbalances everything. So we want to know the whole of the self. And this is yoga. And then there is a true, unified, cohesive, extraordinary, exalted, uplifted whole of the self that then is a beacon of light in the most real way possible for this world. I tried to squeeze it all in, so
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate you sharing so much wisdom with us and through the 5 Elements program. So if y'all want to come join Sianna and Saul and Janet and Juan Pablo and Sri Devi, we are launching again in March the 5 Elements of Yoga program, and we'd love for you all to join and be a part of it. You can check it out at hanumanacademy.com/enroll.
And thank you, Dana. Thank you, Yoshi. Thank you, Hanuman Academy. And thank you to all these beautiful beings, Saul and Janet and Wampa. And who is our illustrious friend of the ether? Say her name for me again.
Sri Devi.
Sri Devi. I did hear her speak. She's amazing. These I love these teachers, and they're true, just they're true masters in the most humble way. And so I'm so grateful, and thank you for the power of collaboration.
You're welcome. Thank you all for joining us. Look forward to connecting with you all again soon. Blessings.
Blessed be. Thank you.
Hey.